calm and stable, and no one wants that to change.
Bethany Bell reporting there. China has hosted the signing ceremony of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, a new international financial institution set to rival the World Bank and Asian Development Bank. China will be the largest shareholder of the bank, followed by India, Russia and Germany. Our Beijing correspondent Martin Patience explains the background to the new bank.
It's what China does best, huge, awe-inspiring infrastructure projects. The country's landscape and economy have been transformed by the astonishing rate of construction. And now Beijing's new development bank aims to fund similar projects across Asia. With this new bank, Chinese construction companies will be well placed to get a large chunk of the business. It's just one of several institutions that Beijing's created in order to push its own economic agenda. And that's largely been driven by China's frustration over its lack of influence in the big global financial institutions such as the World Bank. But what are the benefits of this new bank? It can make up to $100 billion in loans. The bank has 57 member countries, and China's likely to have a 25 to 30% stake. But this bank is about so much more than just money. It's about power and influence in the region and beyond. Washington was furious after some of its allies rushed to sign up. It fears that the bank could mark the start of a new way of doing things, where China's voice grows ever louder in the world and Washington has less of a say.
Martin Patience reporting there from Beijing. Well, let's get more analysis on this situation. Let's speak to Teresa Fallon, a senior associate with the European Institute for Asian Studies. And here in the studio with me, Danny Quah, Professor of Economics and International Development at the London School of Economics. Thank you both for joining us here on Impact. And Danny, I'll start with you. I mean, this is very much about power and influence in the region, isn't it?
Good afternoon, Yalda. Yes, it is. But on the other hand, it's also about building infrastructure. The power and influence narrative is one that says that in the world, we, the United States, whoever it is, needs friends. And there are only a limited number of friends to go around. If China wins more friends, then we've got fewer. The other narrative is that China is actually trying to build infrastructure, lift people out of poverty, grow parts of Asia. Asia still has hundreds of millions of people living on the very edges of extreme poverty. China wants to help.
So then, what is it that worries the United States so much?
Well, there's an official narrative and an unofficial narrative. The official narrative is that the United States worries about this China-led institution lowering standards in the world, reducing environmental standards, lowering procurement safeguards, lowering lending requirements. So the world becomes a more corrupt place. Money doesn't flow to where the people need it most. Instead, it goes to lining the pockets of elites. That's the big worry. But it strikes me that if that's the worry, what one should do is join the bank and make it do the right things, not reject it altogether, because after all, what it wants to do is to help hundreds of millions of people.
So, but there is a possibility. I mean, the United States does have a legitimate concern, doesn't it?
It does. And these are things that we need to look out for everywhere. The United States institutions, current world institutions, all have these problems, and we constantly need to be vigilant on this.
Teresa, let's bring you in. I mean, Danny's saying that, you know, these about the concerns of the United States, but that perhaps the US should have joined the bank rather than reject it or criticize it. What do you think?
Well, the U.S. position was to wait and see how it would be drawn up. I agree that the U.S. kind of had an own goal on this. If they hadn't lobbied other allies not to join, it might have not even been a news story, because the BRICS Bank hasn't received half as much attention. But since the U.S. did lobby against it, it's become a real issue. There's no reason that Japan, through the ADB, the Asian Development Bank, has also reached out to the AIIB to cooperate. And there's been, even President Obama said that there's no reason that the U.S. cannot join the bank, but they wanted to see how it was going to be incorporated.
So you think it's turned into a bigger deal than it should have been?
That's my impression. It became very politicized. And even before this hit the news, I could see within think tanks in the United States there were conflicting views. Some thought this is something very dangerous. This is a parallel structure against Bretton Woods organizations, whereas others said there's a big shortfall within Asia for infrastructure development, and China has this money and is frustrated by not having a bigger role in the IMF, so that allowing them to take this role, it's also helping China to, as Danny said, build more friends, and also it helps to make their Xi Jinping's major strategy about the one road, one belt. It's one way to finance it, and also bring in other countries to support his big plan.
What about, Danny, China's veto power?
Well, okay, at this point, the numbers are coming in today. China is going to have a share just under 1/3 of the voting rights and the stakeholder shares in the bank. And here's a simple calculation. If you look at the 7 largest Western democracies, the voting shares, subscription shares, come up to about 20%. You add in India and the Republic of Korea, our democratic allies, and we the West, outweigh China in what gets said, what the bank will do.
You know, while the United States has remained skeptical, we have seen a number of Western countries joining this bank.
Absolutely. You know, the United Kingdom, first of all, and then all of Europe, 57 countries are signed up. I mean, it looks really bad that the United States has, instead of helping, been sniping at an effort that's supposed to help people in the world.
But this is a bank that will potentially rival the World Bank, so it has a reason to...
Potentially, but there's lots of room. You know, it is the Asian Development Bank itself whose numbers everybody uses. ADB estimates that we in Asia need $800 billion of investment in infrastructure a year. That's $8 trillion over the next 10 years. No one has that kind of firepower. The World Bank is capitalized to about $220 billion, the ADB $260 billion. Even at its peak in due course, right now it looks like AIIB will come in at under $100 billion. AIIB is still the new kid on the block. It is not muscling its way around this space.
Well, it's the launch today, so we'll have to see how this bank actually develops. Danny, Teresa, thank you both for joining us here on the programme.
Thank you very much, Yalda.
Thank you.
Well, stay with us here on Impact. Still to come, we'll have all the latest sports news, including the latest from a day 1 at Wimbledon.
Being a wheelchair user hasn't stopped me from achieving a lot of my personal goals. Today, I get the opportunity to play the sport I love with the locals. I never thought TV was a place for disabled people because I never saw anyone with a disability on TV.
It's like I'm watching a wildlife soap opera. They're just right there.
The Travel Show, your essential guide wherever you're heading. I want people to feel like they're there and they're going on this journey with me. That's it. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be travelling around the world reporting for BBC TV. To trim a plant in the Pope's garden. These experiences are things that I'm going to cherish for the rest of my life.